Hi, and thank you for watching us here at Tax Talk UK, where we talk about all things tax and consider other important aspects of running your small business, being self-employed, working for yourself. So today we're going to talk more about the CIS scheme, and we're going to answer the question, why, if CIS has been deducted, do I still need to complete a self-assessment tax return? And before I talk about that, if I could please ask you to take a moment to subscribe to our YouTube channel. That way you'll easily be able to refer back to the information if you should need to, as well as being able to find other information that we have available on a whole host of different topics, all aimed at supporting you in your self-employment, to ensure that you have your tax affairs accurate and also the most efficient that they can be. If you click the bell to turn on the notifications, you will also be notified each time we upload new information and answer new questions. So back then to the CIS scheme, so Construction Industry Scheme. And we had a few questions as to, if this is being deducted from my payments, why do I still need to submit a self-assessment tax return? Well, the answer is that the Construction Industry Scheme, CIS isn't a specific tax. You aren't having tax and national insurance calculated and deducted in the same way, for example, that an employee would. The Construction Industry Scheme is specifically designed for those operating in the construction industry and working as subcontractors. Means that on a self-employed basis or through a limited company, means this, what the scheme allows is for a set percentage of your labour costs to be withheld by the contractor. They are then, the contractor then reports those on to a monthly return to HMRC, and they pay over the deductions that have been made. So if, for example, you had raised an invoice to your contractor for £1,000 for labour, then, and they had deducted CIS at 20%, then they would pay you £800 as your invoice, and they would withhold £200 for the 20% CIS. They would then notify HMRC that they had withheld that money, and they would then pay that to HMRC, who would then hold it in a holding account ready to transfer it onto your self-assessment account once you submit your return. And just an aside, it is really important that you ensure that your contractor is giving to you a deduction statement to verify that the deductions they have made are in respect of CIS. Now, the reason that you must ensure that is because if, for example, your contractor didn't notify HMRC of those deductions or pay them across to HMRC, you would have no way to verify that the deductions have been made, and therefore you may lose them. So it is really important that you have that documentary evidence that verifies that you have had the CIS deducted. So back then to the self-assessment tax return. So the percentage that is deducted, it's generally would be 20%. If the criteria is met, some subcontractors may be able to register for gross status, which means that the payments of labour still go through the CIS scheme, but are deducted at 0% in effect. Or if you haven't correctly registered, both as a sole trader and as a subcontractor, then HMRC will verify to your contractor that they must deduct 30%. So those are the rates the rates are relevant at the time of deduction. So if, for example, you had payments made with a 30% deduction, but then you called HMRC, phoned the CIS helpline, and registered as a CIS subcontractor on your self-employment record, then future payments were deducted at 20%, but that 30%, that's happened. It's literally what HMRC has told your contractor at the point of payment. So it is important if you're having payments deducted at 30% because you've not registered, just to make that call. It's really quick and easy, especially if you've already registered as the sole trader. We have a video that shows you how to do this, and it's not the money's not lost because it goes onto your record, and you will offset it against your liability at the end of the year. But depending on how much your profit is, it could be that that is significantly higher than the liability, and therefore, although you will have it back, it's better obviously to have it deducted at the correct amount. So as I explained earlier, CIS, Construction Industry Scheme, it's a scheme for contractors to withhold payments to their subcontractors, and it's not a specific tax. It's not calculated as an exact amount. The idea is that an average amount is deducted, that is how the percentage is determined by HMRC. So they determine that that those rates will cover the majority of subcontractors' liabilities, so that if the subcontractor isn't doing what they should do and submit a self-assessment tax return declaring their taxable profit, then HMRC will at least then have received money to cover this, and somebody isn't able to operate under the radar and not declare their income to HMRC. So what happens then when you submit your self-assessment tax return, which you do at the end of the tax year, you are declaring on that return to HMRC all of your income from your self-employment, and the any expenditure that you've incurred, any allowable costs that you're allowed to deduct from that income, and then that then gives your profit for tax purposes, and this is what you're taxed on, and your liability will then be exactly determined based on your individual profit. You will then know how much tax and national insurance, both class 2 and class 4, will be liable. And on that self-assessment tax return, as well as declaring the details to calculate your profit, you will also be letting HMRC know how much CIS has been deducted by your contractors, also known as being suffered. CIS is referred to as suffered, deducted. It's all the different words, the same as lots of things, different words all mean the same. And then your final calculation will show the liability that you have incurred, less any CIS that's been deducted. And if the CIS has covered more than the liability that's due, you will then be in an overpayment situation, and HMRC will reimburse as soon as that tax return is submitted. Usually within 30 days, they will reimburse you any overpayment made. So hopefully this explains why the CIS isn't a tax. It's just an amount that's paid to HMRC, and it's sort of put, if you think of it, it sort of sits alongside your self-assessment account until you submit that tax return, at what point those deductions are moved into your self-assessment account and offset against the liability that has been determined on your specific profits. And this is the reason why materials are excluded from the CIS deduction, because of course, if you have spent £100 on materials and you're recharging your contractor £100 for materials, there's no profit. You've not made any profit in that. You've charged your contractor, so you have the income, but you also have the cost to offset it. So therefore they offset each other. And that is another little aside, something that people do forget is that if you have recharged something to your contractor, that you must also include the cost that you have incurred, because otherwise that becomes profit, of course, because the profit is determined by the income less the cost. So if you only include the income from recharging it but don't include the actual cost in your cost, then that will be inflating your profit and increasing the tax that you're paying incorrectly. And of course, we want our accounts to be tax efficient and accurate both ways. So much as we don't want to claim anything that we shouldn't, we do want to make sure that we allow for everything that we are able to. So hopefully this helps you to understand how even if you're having CIS deducted, you must still submit your self-assessment tax return to HMRC at the end of the tax year. Thank you very much for watching. Goodbye.